Good evening, and welcome to the first WILPF Call of 2022. I'm Sandy Thacker from the East Bay, California branch. Also on our call team are Ann Henney, who's also from the East Bay, California branch, Mary Beth Gardam from Iowa City, Iowa, and Nancy Price from Davis, California. Our technical support teammate is Ellen Thomas from the mountains of North Carolina. This Zoom meeting happens every second Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and is sponsored by members of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, U.S. section. This is a public call. We're video recording, and the video will be posted on in just a few days to WILPF's YouTube channel and our WILPF Call webpage. Those links are in the chat and on the text pad. WILPF US is a sisterhood, though we welcome male, queer, and trans members too. These monthly connections to one another keep us strong across the United States. For those who don't know, WILPF is the oldest women's international peace organization in the world. Founded in 1915 by Jane Addams of Hull House. There are over 30 WILPF branches in the United States, and we are one of 50 sections around the world. You can find out more and join us at our website, www.wilpfus.org/join. It's on the text pad. Please remain muted when you're not speaking to reduce background noise. We'll post the agenda in the chat. There is also a Google Doc text pad where you can add information under the red line. The link to that text pad is also in the chat. Later on, the chat is also where you'll post questions. To make your questions easier to find, please type questions in caps. Mary Beth?
Hey, thank you. I'm always trailing behind on the chat entries, but it's all coming. We hope you received, all of you, your copy of Peace and Freedom magazine in December and enjoyed it as much as we did. Great stories and images of inspiring work our members pursue across the United States and tributes to members we've lost recently. We're also still basking in the inspiring reports that branches turned in last month with a summary of their work in 2021. If you missed it and want to hear about the great work being done by WILPF members across the country, you can listen to the recording. I'll put that in the chat in a minute too. Tonight, we'll complete our planning for the solidarity actions in 2022. We'll hear the votes totaled in support of 3 action options. We'll decide how many actions we want to support, and we'll assign working groups to take the future next steps and set strategies to make our intentions into reality. Because organizing is what we do. But before any of that, we've invited our 3 new board members to introduce themselves and talk briefly about their plans for their new roles. Welcome Diane Blaze, new board secretary, Jennifer Bailey, new program chair, and Philip Cole, new at-large board member. You've each got 3 minutes to tell us a bit about yourselves and any specific goals you might have in your new WILPF role. So let's start alphabetically with Jennifer Bailey, then Diane, then Philip. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mary Beth, and I apologize. I'm trying to upload an image, but I haven't been successful. So tonight, perhaps in future meetings, I'll have one. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. I am, to your point, Mary Beth, interested in working with all of the groups to come up with ways to effectively evaluate our progress and our focus. And I'm also interested in exploring different formats, such as, do we want to work it more toward meetings, or would we like to work in other venues to allow greater flexibility to accommodate people's schedules? So far, I've been very impressed in talking with one-on-one with people about Ellen Thomas's work, for example, introducing a new bill. I admire Nancy Price's experience here recently, even to continue onward with a project by seeing what could be done differently, following up with debriefing. So I'm seeing a lot of good work done by people and in a lot of different ways. So I'd like to hear from everybody, and we'll be contacting you individually to see what your preferences are. And most recently, Mary Beth, you and Cindy and hopefully Nancy and Brianna have agreed to vet the disarm concept notes for the Plowshares Fund. With that in mind, I want to thank you again for being part of WILPF, and I'd like to turn that back over to you, Mary Beth.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Next, Diane Blay, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia right now. Although I grew up in the Washington State, and actually I've been in that DC area for a long time now. So when I got out of college, I worked in the DC area for the White House and for the Navy and the Air Force and the Senate. Different places, but as secretary, I think everybody knows what that involves. So takes minutes, and but you do have to have an idea what's going on the board. So for, I think it's been the past year now, I've been taking minutes for the board, although I wasn't the official secretary. So I've had the experience of doing it, and I've learned a lot about WILPF US and a little bit about WILPF International. But anyway, I'll just do the best I can. Anybody can write me or call me anytime. And just, I appreciate everybody who's a member of WILPF because I think it's such a great organization. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And finally, we have Philip Cole, our colleague from the San Francisco branch. Philip?
Well, thank you for this invitation. And I would like to start out by thanking everyone who took time to cast a vote in the past election. And hopefully in the next election that we have a lot of new members and who will be energized thanks to our work to cast many more votes. And I am an at-large member coming onto the board, and I really want to ensure the maintenance of the original vision of WILPF and the original mission work of WILPF is what I'm really interested in, and to maintain the integrity that has been built up over the last 106 years. And I also hopefully will be in a position to support the work of individual branches, and hopefully the people and members of that branch, these branches around the country, will reach out to me anytime that they would like some assistance in any fashion that is needed. And I want to thank in particular the members of the East Bay branch and the San Francisco branch who embraced my joining of WILPF 5 years ago. It has been a great welcome that they've given me and great support. And, you know, I really appreciate their encouragement. And as of late, the counsel that I have received from current board members is really appreciated. And hopefully I will be able to reach out to the remaining board members that I haven't been able to talk to just yet to give me some guidance. So I'll be in a position to do a good job. Thank you so much for your help.
Thank you so much, Philip. And thank you all three for stepping forward to help lead WILPF US. Our national organization helps support the work of members and branches, and we know that doing that work can sometimes be dry and time consuming, but also you have a wonderful opportunity to help shape the future of WILPF US. So thank you all so much. In just a few minutes, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but someone just they just chatted with me and they wanted to know if I was in a branch, and I really should have said this, but I am the convener for the Jane Addams branch. So the Jane Addams branch is a very large branch. It's a virtual branch, and we are having meetings the third Wednesday of every month at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And so anyone who doesn't have a local branch, like I think maybe everyone knows about it, but that if you don't have a local branch, if you want to be on a virtual branch, the Jane Addams is a good branch to join. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Okay, in a few minutes, we're going to report on the vote outcomes for the 3 proposed solidarity actions we introduced last month on our December call. But before we do, we have just a few announcements, and we're going to keep them brief. First up is Lenny Villagomez-Rees from the Cuba and Bolivarian Alliance Committee. Lenny, you've got 3 minutes. If you have longer details, just place them in the chat or the text pad.
Very brief. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me for further details, I will put my email and Cindy's in the text pad. We had our first meeting of 2022 on the 14th. We decided on some things that we're going to work on, and you are very welcome to join us. Our next meeting is going to be on February 14th. And yes, we know it's Valentine's Day, but yeah, we're going to meet on the second Monday of each month and get some work done. Going to do political work, including follow up on the letter sent by 114 members of the House of Representatives to Biden in December, urging him to re-engage with Cuba and to address humanitarian concerns and matters of mutual interest. This was led by Barbara Lee, Gregory Meeks, Bobby Rush, and Jim McGovern. A letter writing campaign around this was proposed, and I think we're going to do that too, but we should definitely follow up with our representatives and senators. We're going to work on informing people of the truth about Cuba and about the US blockade of Cuba and its effects. And this includes, you know, webinars, articles. We're going to attempt a film festival with Catherine Murphy's films on the literacy campaign and Juana Cordones Cook's films about major Cuban cultural figures, including poets Georgina Herrera, who just died recently, and Nancy Morejon, who thankfully is still alive. And we are also going to talk in our information about Guantanamo, because this is the 20th anniversary of the US use of Guantanamo as a torture prison. And I think it's very important that people realize that we maintain a offshore prison where no law applies, and that this is also an issue of sovereignty because this is on territory stolen from another nation. So come on the second Monday of every month and help us out. It'll be interesting, and I can't guarantee you it will be fun, and I can't guarantee you we're going to win anytime in my lifetime, but let's struggle. See you there.
What time?
It's 5 if you're on the West Coast. It's 8 if you're on the East Coast. We pride ourselves on short meetings. We got it done in an hour and a half last time. We're hoping for an hour next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lenny. And you did a great job with that, keeping it brief. Next up are some announcements from our section president, Darian Deleu. Darian, the same thing. Remember to post things that are more detailed in the chat and on the text pad.
Yes, I have a more detailed item to post into the text pad now that I've seen the link for the text pad. Thank you. And I just want to really thank Lenny for updating us on what's going on with the Cuba Committee. I was just on my walk before this evening, the meeting, and the devastating effects of our government in so many ways are visible and invisible around us. The blockade in Cuba, the after effects in Afghanistan, and our own urban neighborhoods that have been affected, whether it be air pollution or environmental racism or traffic risks or whatever.
Hola.
So it is all greatly connected. Whoops.
Te hablé,
Lenny,
no
por
contesté.
favor, Lenny.
Espérame, me quieren hablar. Sorry.
Can you mute? Thank you. So, okay, my announcements very briefly. In the world that I feel a little small in WILPF today, announcing that we are among those who are fortunate to welcome new leadership and new staff into WILPF, and the Personnel Committee has done an amazing job of pulling together hiring teams and interviews and finding wonderful people to be staff members for WILPF US. So you got to meet some of our new staff last meeting, and thank you to the Personnel Committee, which continues its work, and like all the national board committees, is looking for qualified members. And I'll put a link about the board meeting that's coming up, and the board has to approve appointments of members for the board committees, the standing committees like personnel and like program committee that Jennifer is is the chair of for now. So board information, I'll put up the link, and the board meets every month. You're welcome to the meeting this month on the 25th. We invite you to contact us at secretary@wilpfus.org, and that will be in the text pad so that we can send you the agenda for the meeting. Sadly, I have not been able to get the agenda out more than a few days before the meetings, but you can see the minutes from the last meeting. They're posted at the link I will post. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Darian. Finally, we're going to hear from the Disarm Committee's Cheryl Spencer with information for members and branches taking action to mark the anniversary of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons becoming international law. Cheryl?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. So I have just put in the chat what is going to be your most useful link to find events that are going on all over the United States on or around the 22nd of January. And there are 12 events already posted there, and more events are being put there. So I hope you all recall that last January the 22nd, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons entered into force because more than 50 countries had ratified it. We've had 8 more since then. And I have put in the text pad a whole bunch of information for you, because last year we produced 4 resource guides on the TPNW and what you could do about it and how to write letters to President Biden about it. All those guides are still valid. And so in the text pad, you will see some links to those guides. Now, let me warn you, when you click on that very long URL, it will ask you on your computer to save the file. The file will not open. Don't think you've had an error, okay? It will say, where do you want to save this file? Because they're all Word documents. And then you will save it to that directory on your computer, which I hope says is the directory that deals with the TPNW, okay? So most of what are in those guides is still relevant, okay? Reminds you about the treaty and things like that. So this, what I just put in the chat is the ICANW website event calendar. There are 12 events already there, all over the country, many of them in person. Also in the text pad where I put a link to our February last year e-news, where I described all the branches that actually got out on the streets last January the 22nd. So I'm hoping the same branches will go out there again. You've got the banners you made last year. You've got the lawn signs you made last year. You need to find those lawn signs where you stuck them in the back of the garage and put them out on your front areas near the street again, please. There are letter templates. We still unfortunately have to keep writing to our senators, because it's the senators who actually in the US ratify treaties. The president, of course, needs to be told about it again and again and again. And so in the text pad, there's quite a lot of information. If those of you who are worried, as we all should be, about the Omicron, there are lots of things to do from home. There are webinars out of Massachusetts, out of Oregon, mostly at times convenient to us, where they have expert speakers talking about nuclear disarmament and this treaty in particular. So you don't actually have to leave your house to take part in this celebration of the first anniversary. And there will be a big conference in Vienna in March, where the states parties who have ratified it, 58 countries so far, will be meeting to work out how to implement this treaty, all the logistical details. And the last thing I wanted to mention, Jennifer mentioned, she talked about a Plowshares Fund request for proposals. So we have several concept notes that we're almost finished with, that we could get money, a whole bunch of money, up to $75,000 from the Plowshares Fund to do projects that will enhance the diversity of those who know about nuclear weapons and are working against nuclear weapons. If we're lucky enough to earn one of those grants, then that will be an opportunity for many branches and members to take part in more activities around the TPNW and arms control. One of our ideas collaborates with the Poor People's Campaign, with whom we have been collaborating since it started in 2017. So please look at the text pad, save it. You go to the file and you say save as a Word document, and then you'll get everybody's announcements there. And there's my email address. If you have any questions, please write to me, and hope that some of you will be out on the 22nd. Here in the Bay Area, it's the 21st. We're all going to Lawrence Livermore Lab to stand outside and harass the workers. That's why we have to be there on Friday. They don't work on Saturdays. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you everyone for those announcements. Now we get to review the results of the voting for the 3 solidarity action options. Mary Beth will screen share the results and the totals. Then we'll discuss the timeline associated with each of the projects. But let's recap first which actions we are voting on. 1 was coordinated support for voting rights legislation and get out the vote efforts in 2022. The second was a concerted effort to have a large WILPF presence from across the country at the Poor People's Campaign March in Washington, D.C. in June 2022, as well as associated actions in the states. Third was a coordinated effort to organize our members to ask their local mayors to join the Mayors for Peace organization and participate in that organization's anti-nuclear organizing in time for the August Hiroshima and Nagasaki anniversaries. The details of whichever actions are chosen will be decided by those who volunteer for organizing to lead organizing for the chosen actions. The volunteers will design a variety of action options for our members and the public on an agreed timeline. Generally, here's how the timeline for these actions might play out so you can get an idea of the possible timing for each.
Okay, so for the voting rights actions, the general thinking is that there would be 2 periods of the year that we would want to organize around this. It would probably be necessary to do both of them, or at least offer both options. So we need to start right now and continue through whenever the congressional votes occur to organizing a WILPF-wide legislative call-in at the national and state level to generate support for these bills. We know many of you have already been doing this, but this effort would be branded as a WILPF member call-in. And then again in the fall, probably starting around August or September, we could begin to roll out some local strategies you might use to support Get Out the Vote efforts. Postcard writing campaigns or staffing voter registration sites or caravans to promote local voting sites. It would be up to the planning committee, and we'll be asking to formulate that committee on this call to decide the details.
For the Poor People's Campaign action, we need to begin, we need to begin pretty soon, but definitely by March or April, we'd have to have plans in place to arrange for local promotion of bus trips to DC, collaborating with the state Poor People's Campaign coordinators to push travel to the march, and of course, coordinating with our allies in our various cities. Our WILPF PPC liaison, Dorothy Van Soest, is offering to provide access to the national PPC folks for the leaders of WILPF US Planning Committee, and offer some peripheral advice, but the majority of her efforts will be to ramp up participation in her home state of Washington. So the leaders of this planning committee would be charged with working closely with branches and members to beat the WILPF PPC drum, organize to get bodies to DC, and coordinate communications about this. Probably by late May, we should have strategies and alliances strongly in place to make this successful. If the PPC decides, because of COVID, to make this a virtual event, and they're not talking about that now, those alliances will still be useful for getting people onto the virtual march. We know that some of you have already been organizing around this, so this may not be anything new for you.
The last action we voted on is the Mayors for Peace effort, and it would require some organizing this spring. We'd need to ask branches and members to visit with their mayors and request that they join Mayors for Peace. There are many ways mayors can support the MFP anti-nuclear efforts. Starting to convene the planning in spring means that there could be a WILPF-wide solidarity action on this in concert with the Hiroshima and Nagasaki days in August. We spoke with Jackie Cabasso about this from the Western States Legal Foundation, and because the website itself was not completely clear. Turns out Jackie has organized a brilliant toolkit to make this kind of organizing easy, with talking points, model resolutions, handouts, a list of which cities are already signed on, and options for individual mayors to take action, from pretty small potatoes actions to fairly labor-intensive organizing. So there are a lot of different ways for your mayors to engage on many levels. Membership in Mayors for Peace costs under $40 one time. And once a mayor joins Mayors for Peace, the city remains a Mayors for Peace city through subsequent mayoral terms into perpetuity.
So if we move forward on one or more of these, this timeline is pretty much what it would look like. The red is for the voting rights times, the blue is for the Poor People's Campaign, and the Mayors for Peace is in purple. And you can see that some of them overlap, but we'd probably have different coordinating committees working on each of them. So hopefully we wouldn't be too bogged down. For the, let's see. A lot of us are already making efforts in these areas. So this would just be about coordinating them through WILPF US. And I think you can see pretty easily here how the timing would work. Go ahead, Anne.
Okay, yeah. In March, April, or May, the organizing for the Mayors for Peace might begin with efforts to get the word out and distribute Jackie Cabasso's toolkit, probably through an e-alert to members, and then follow up with branches. maybe also some work with our new social media intern. Then from March through May, organizers would be working on connecting with members and branches to encourage them to meet with their mayors and city councils so they can report on how many more cities signed up in time to announce it around August 1st. The Poor People's Campaign would also have to start pretty early because we need to begin connecting with both the state PPC organizers and local allies to explore the potential for renting buses and getting the word out about travel to DC in June. That would be a concentrated amount of organizing, probably beginning around March or April, continuing through June. But of course, most of our members would not have to get busy making signs and travel plans till late May.
So let's look at the way now that the votes broke down. And I'm trying to get that, that list up in front for you. And I'm not having such a great time doing it. Let's see if I can find it. Here we are. Okay. The vote spread is here. There we go. You can see that the votes broke down pretty widely across the topics, but it was a pretty conclusive result, with 21 branches submitting votes and 16 individual members also weighing in. The results tally support the following numbers. And it's not a lot of overall votes, but remember that each branch vote represents the consensus of all of their members. So here we are.
Mary Beth, can you see if you could make it full screen? Maybe we could see more of it all at once.
Let's see.
There's something blocking out part of it, but oh, okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is summarize what you can see part of. I think we'll go through the first part anyway. The first choice votes are the first ones listed there, but keep in mind that if you or your branch voted for something that didn't make it to be the majority first choice, that doesn't mean that you and your branch can't work on that on your own. It's just that these are the things that we're focusing on as the One WILPF Solidarity actions. And we did ask for some other suggestions, but none of them rose to the level of having strong support from a lot of branches or individuals. So it seems clear, as you can see, that the voting rights work has the most support, with 12 branches and 7 individuals selecting it as their first choice. The clear second choice, if you can scroll down a little bit, Mary Beth, is a PPC action in June in DC, with 8 branches selecting it as a first choice and 3 individuals. Yeah, okay, there you go. And then the third was the Mayors of Peace Project, which had 4 branches and 5 individuals supporting it as their first choice. Mary Beth, do you have a different chart or is it the same one?
It's the same one here.
Okay, yeah, so the first decision we all need to make today is looking at the timelines. Do we have the will and the capacity to do more than one of these? There's obviously a lot of support and interest for all 3. If so, we want to find out who's willing to work on them. We need to form short-term planning committees to organize and figure out the details. So, so now why don't we open this up for discussion, and we'll poll everybody on which ones of these you want to pursue and help work on organizing. So if you would like to speak, put your name in the chat in caps, and then Sandy will moderate the discussion.
Okay, I see that Dorothy Van Soest wants to speak. So why don't we, Dorothy, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, thanks everybody. I just want to point out that the Poor People's Campaign and Low Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March on Washington is "and to the polls." It's a march on Washington and to the polls. So when you look at the timelines and you think about your time and what you want to put effort into, you've got the voting rights at the early part and then more towards the election. The Poor People's Campaign, really the timeline will be going all the way through the November 2022 election. So there's an overlap. There's an overlap.
Right. Yeah, I see that. That's a very good point, Dorothy. Thank you. Darian?
I just wondered if eventually, Mary Beth, you could give us a simplified version of your chart, just the number of votes number 1 for each one and the number of votes number 2 for each one, without specifying other choices, because it was hard to take in the information as it was presented. But that's aside, I primarily also wanted to speak up that the voting work does work hand in glove with the Poor People's Campaign. And so I see those as something that WILFers could get behind and flow from one to the other. Thank you.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting to see if a solidarity action might somehow tie those together, but we can talk about that more. Lenny, you had something? Lenny?
I just had a question. We voted, right? It sounds like we're returning to the discussion of what we already voted on. I don't understand the reason for that. We should take the first place votes choice and see how we can move on it, right? That's where we are now. What was the point of voting otherwise?
Well, I think, yes, we did vote on it, but I think we just wanted anybody's comments, like the comment from Dorothy that some of these might overlap. So I think it was useful information. And so I think we'll just take a couple more and then we'll move on. Robin? Robin Lloyd?
Maybe on mute, Robin.
Right. Okay, we voted for voting. I would just like to point out that we have a Democratic legislature. How many people in this call come from states with Republican legislatures? Raise your hand. Okay, so
Governor.
I mean, I think that's not Massachusetts. Well, anyway.
No, governor.
Oh, a governor. Okay. That seems to me very relevant because in Vermont, exactly how will we implement involvement in voting rights since we have a progressive legislature? And obviously there are groups such as, I think it's called Left Action or something, where people call individuals in other states. I have not been involved in that. And so I gather that our branch needs to get more involved in that kind of outreach. And also all of you who come from progressive states like California will need to, work to promote voting in other states in your own state. So I think that's a sort of interesting job that I haven't been involved in myself so far.
Yeah, I think that it seems that if people sign up to be involved in organizing these actions, that would be one of the issues that would come up, is how do we do this for different branches that are in different political situations. So that's a good point to bring up, I think. Elenita?
Thank you. one of our members, I'm from the Cape Cod branch, and the only one we voted for was the voting rights one. One of our members, Alicia Davis, who is in stage 4 cancer, has been working from her deathbed, providing information for us and pointing out repeatedly that unless we can save democracy across the country and help change the balance of the Republican Democratic legislatures, it doesn't matter what else we do, because if Trump gets back in or his cronies, we're sunk. So I wonder if that is the kind of work that WILPF should be doing. I think Robin's on the right track. Maybe Massachusetts, I don't need to be calling my neighbors in Massachusetts, but where do we have branches in swing states? Where do we have branches that are in areas where getting people to the polls is critically important? And how can that become part of our campaign? I think this is something that needs to start now and not stop, but continue right through, fighting as hard as we can to save these, to save our democracy. Really, it's huge. And Alicia is going to keep on sending us information from her bed. She can't sleep at night, so she does research. And I just think that that's something we should think about. That it's critical.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
have Nancy Price on the stack, and Ellen Moss has raised her hand, and so has Margot Schulter. So just letting you know.
Ellen Schwartz, did you say?
No, Nancy Price and Ellen Moss, and then Margot Schulter.
Okay. I think I saw Joan Goddard too.
Oh, and Joan Goddard, yeah.
Okay. Joan, go ahead.
Oh, mine's quick. Let's see. I just wanted to say that as far as the Mayors for Peace, it's very important, but it doesn't have the same kind of time deadline that the June PPC and then ongoing work, and also overlapping with, of course, with the voting rights work. So I guess because we didn't have a strong vote for Mayors for Peace, that we just realized that we'll probably work on that more next year. And we can all work on it anytime we want to. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's right. That I think people set up priorities based on the situation in the country right now. So Nancy Price, Nancy.
Tina Shelton
yes,
also
hello.
has.
How do you like my new red frame glasses?
Very cool.
Very cool. So I think it would be productive if we took that list, Mary Beth, that you showed of the branches and perhaps the individuals that replied, and had a quick webinar a quick meeting, Zoom meeting, to really assess and get input from various, on various ideas of how to approach this. I think one thing we need to pay attention right away is to trying to get these voting rights acts passed. I think that's a crucial first step, perhaps. It's, of course, very tied up with the filibuster, but that's a part of this problem of getting the voting rights bills passed. And at the same time, also maybe creating an inventory of of suggestions, what else we could begin to map out, as Elenita and some others have suggested. So I think some sort of meeting very soon like that would be beneficial.
You want to call it?
Excuse me?
Do you want to call it, Nancy? Call it.
Call the meeting?
When?
When?
Yeah, we need to set up, we need to take a poll of who on the call wants to work on voting rights piece, and then set a time to meet so that we can begin work on it. And we need to decide if we're going to also do PPC work, since that was the second choice, or not. And if so, do we want to volunteer tonight for the mobilizing?
You're frozen, Mary Beth.
Could I just respond to your suggestion a minute?
Go ahead.
So I think that's an excellent idea to see who on this call would be interested in any one of these three topics. For voting rights, I'm particularly interested in that, but I'd also like to see who among the branches and the individuals who responded to the poll might also like to be part of some sort of coordinating committee. So that's, I guess, the scope of my suggestion.
What do you mean?
Having a call next week.
What do you mean by a coordinating what?
We need a planning committee. We just need a planning committee to.
Well, whatever you want to call it. I don't care what we call it.
Oh, okay.
But some sort of team, that could strategize and engage the branches and the members who did respond to this poll, and work out a strategic timeline and the scope of what people on the call see as important to try to map out and to develop some materials on, et cetera, et cetera.
So I want to respond to Barbara's comment, and then there are people on the stack, including Teresa, Paula, and Jennifer. But Barbara is.
Mary Beth, can we take them in the order, because Ellen's been up there, Tina's been up there for a while,
Yes.
and then Margot, and then Teresa.
All right, can I respond to Barbara before that, because her question is sort of kind of off the wall a little bit. She's saying that we can't support candidates. We all know that we can't support candidates. This is a nonpartisan effort to get out the vote. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to Ellen Mass. Ellen, you had a comment?
Yes. I would really like to see Jackie Cabasa's list of the mayors for peace, people that have signed on, because that really is the closest we have as a priority towards disarmament. Because although we're targeting mayors that haven't signed on, we really have the opportunity to build up the disarmament rationale and support. So I'm thinking that once we have that, like in a densely packed state like Massachusetts, with a densely packed, in Boston with enormous peace action participation, that we really do, once we see all the ones that haven't signed on, we might really be able to make that a major part of the three choices, a major choice of the three choices. Because it is the disarmament one. I think it's the closest of the three towards, don't you think so?
I just reposted Jackie's toolkit in the chat. All of the materials you need, anyone needs to work on that, are there.
Yeah, I think it would be a question of whether that would be a solidarity action, or if that would just be something we would encourage for branches in different states to take on as branches, to see where they can go to try to get more mayors for peace. Tina Shelton.
You're on mute, Tina. Tina, you're mute. You're muted. Okay, well, let's go to Margot then, if that's okay. We can come back to Tina.
Just briefly, I want to point out that this maybe is the intersection of two of those proposals, but the Poor People's Campaign is trying to do a nonpartisan voter registration drive to register poor people who are they would calculate are 140 million people, or 43% of the population, who are vulnerable to, one unfortunate thing happening economically could mean homelessness or impoverization. And so they count again, 40 million or 43%. Their plan is just to register these people from a nonpartisan focus, but just to get them registered and encourage them to vote. And I'm wondering if that could be one of the proposals, or if we could tie in with that, because we would sort of, because there are two sort of proposals that seem related to that.
Yeah, I think particularly the part of the voting rights, there's the voting rights bills, and then there's the getting people to register and vote. And I do think a focus on that would be poor people and people of color, because those are the people that are most affected by elections. So I can see those are working maybe in tandem with the Poor People's Campaign on that part of the it. Who else? I don't have. I think
Sheldon and Joan Goddard are next, and then Teresa Ellerman.
Did Joan already did speak? Did she want to speak again?
Oh, okay, that's right.
I think everybody has spoken. Betty Traynor did have a question about whether Teresa's next. It's also in the chat, is a question from Betty Traynor about whether we can have 2 solidarity events.
We have had years where we had 2. In fact, I think there was one year when we had 3. So yes, we need to make that decision pretty quickly. And maybe the best way to do it is to take a poll of who wants to work on each one. And that will determine pretty quickly if we have the capacity.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I joined very late. And I was responding to Nancy Price, I think it was, who said who would like to be involved in a more deeper analysis or planning process for these actions, because I really don't think they should be counterposed. I like to think that we should do them all. The mayors.
We lost you.
Teresa, you froze, or we lost you.
Teresa. You call in, Teresa?
Oh, no, I don't understand what you're asking.
We lost you. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, it happens with this phone. I'm on my phone. So I shared the mayor's piece with the mayor of Columbus. The election for mayor of Columbus is in May, but he'll still be the mayor in August. And he seemed interested in being a part of that number. And so I am pursuing that piece with the mayor of Columbus. And I'm shocked to see how few cities in North America are actually signed up. When I looked at the list and to see all the cities in Asia and other continents that have many more. And so I think we have a lot to do in the US empire and in North America in particular, and given the TPNW actions that are going to be taking place in a few days. And I'll be doing one in Georgia with Nuclear Watch South, which is a retreat that I hope I can get to tell about a little, maybe, at the national board meeting. But there's just so much to do and not enough people to do it. And so I hope that Nancy's suggestion of deepening this discussion in a more strategic way, so that we show that we're in it for the long haul and not just this year or some other short-term view, because the voting rights thing is going to become the biggest scandal of the Biden administration. And the Democratic Party is going to go down in flames in November. So get ready for that. Get ready for a new era of Trumpism. And so we just got to get more strategic and more prepared for what the possibilities are and the difficulties are that lie ahead. So I am interested in a more strategic conversation about the state of our democracy or lack thereof. So I wish Nancy would communicate with me by calling me so that we can have a conversation. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. So I think, should we move on? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, since the top two choices that were voted on were voter rights and the PPC actions, let's restrict our volunteering to those two things. If you want to work on the voter rights piece, put number 1 in the chat. And if you want to work on the PPC action, put number 2 in the chat. And
How about if we put a word in the chat? Numbers get mixed up. How about PPC or voters?
Okay, that's fine. Just trying to make it easy.
Yes, yes. Sorry, just.
Can you do both?
Yes, yes.
I'm trying to write it all down. Well, we'll capture this, so I guess I don't need to write it all down. But it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 9 people, 10. I'm gonna have to wait till everyone's done voting.
Yes.
Well,
Give
where
people a little bit
putting-
of a chance.
Where are we putting our votes?
You're putting it in chat. You just type it as a message. You either put
Yeah, I did.
voting
Okay,
or,
I
oh
did.
yeah. Okay, that's it. We're just counting them up though.
And if you want to work on both, feel free to say that's what you want.
That's absolutely.
So who's writing this list down? Will somebody?
Well, it'll be in the chat and we'll capture it. And as soon as everyone, finishes, I'll try to collect them. It's kind of hard to do that at the moment, but I'll work on it.
I want to emphasize that branches are certainly welcome to work on other campaigns as well. This is a tradition of WILPF, and these are our solidarity actions that have been so well outlined earlier. Thank you.
Yes, I think that's very important to make a point, Dan, that, all of our branches have other activities we're doing, but these are just what we've decided on One WILPF to try to do as solidarity actions for the, for all the branches to work on together.
Just a FYI, in Massachusetts, our governor, who is Republican and is finishing his second term, is stepping down. He announced it, was it yesterday or today? So we don't know what's going to come forth after he steps down. My personal city mayor is already a grant for Mayors for Peace. So we're all set with that.
I'm writing
Eileen.
furiously.
Eileen.
Yeah.
I see that you put down voting.
Voting is one. That's what I'm mainly interested in, but Poor People's Campaign is important too.
Of course, of course.
But that's number 2.
Yeah.
And I'd like to meet next Monday if you were available, my time, 8 p.m. Are you available, Nancy?
5 o'clock Monday. I think I am. Yeah. Let's see. I need to get this list down.
Writing it as we speak.
Of course, you can both save the chat and you may be able to copy large swaths of the chat. You don't have to write things down.
Has everybody made their choice?
I think maybe.
I don't know about you, Nancy, but I definitely would like to work with PPC on the voting. That
Yes.
idea was brilliant, and let's roll if we can do it.
I would agree.
So should we continue here, or are we still waiting for people to vote?
I'm just going to burst into the, I think we need to hear from Dorothy eventually about what the Poor People's Campaign is planning for this spring and what she hopes that we can do as WILPF, because we haven't heard from her about that aspect of it.
I can respond to that now if you want me to. Might make things move along a little faster too. I took down the names of everybody here who said they wanted to work the Poor People's Campaign. And several of you I already knew were interested because you wrote to wilpf4ppc@gmail.com when I sent out a message asking who might be interested in mobilizing for June 18th. So the idea that we're playing around with right now is to put together an ad hoc emergency mobilizing committee, just a small group of people who will come up with a plan and then call a meeting of as many WILPF people as possible to fill them in on what is this about, who wants to get on board, not just limited to the people who are interested, but to everybody in your branches and all the issue committees and program committees, and invite the National Poor People's Campaign, Reverend Barbara and Reverend Liz, to come and talk to us at that point. And Rowan Fairgrove is putting together a video of WILPF's involvement with the Poor People's Campaign over the years since it was revitalized in 2018 that we can show. So we can, once we have a chair and we're identifying people, you know who you are, but we haven't talked about it yet. If we can get that finalized, we could send a message out and set up a meeting for that. And then at that point, I will step back and the mobilizing committee can do its work.
I have compiled the list. Listen for your name. If I don't have you, let me know. But for voting, I have Eileen Kurkowski, Elenita, Ashley Carrington, Lenny Reeves, Paula Rochelle, Sandy Thacker, Joan Goddard, Pam Albright, Betty Trainer, Sylvia Metzler, Mary Beth, that's me, Nancy Price, Darian DeLue, Jean Hopkins, Donna File, Philip Cole, and Judy Adams. And to be clear, this isn't about whether your branch is supporting this. We've already decided that this definitely will be at least one of the solidarity actions. This is about if you personally will commit to help organize this. And we have 17 people who said that they would. Am I missing anyone from the voters piece? I don't see anyone saying that I'm missing them, so that's good. In the PPC, we have Eileen Kurkowski, Diane Blay, Darian DeLue, Judy Adams, Rowan Fairgrove, Emily Keel, Odile, Huguenot Haber, Joan Goddard, and Jane Henley. Am I missing anyone from that list? Okay,
And I have 5 other people who let me know through the email that they would like to work on that.
Okay, great. So, and I don't have you down, Dorothy. So that means there are 10 people we have, and you have another 5. So that's about 15 for PPC and 17 for voting rights. That sounds like a pretty good start. Now we just have to identify times to meet to begin the work and come up with leaders for these groups. So,
Mary Beth, I don't want to break up the momentum here, but there are a couple of people who have their hands raised, and Nancy also is on the stack. So Robin and Cheryl and Nancy have all indicated a desire to speak.
okay, but we're going to come back to setting a date.
Yeah. Could I just make a comment, however? Since several people in the chat indicate that they want to work on both voting rights and the PPC, it seems to me that if we knew more, so there's 2 aspects to the PPC that were mentioned. One is planning events and the event in DC and complementary events in state capitals or even locally. And the other was that the PPC is going to have an ongoing voting rights, voting registration, getting out the vote campaign. So it would be, I think, helpful for the voting rights people to Dorothy, to be sort of in touch with whoever in the PPC could tell us more about that aspect of the PPC work and going forward, so that we could maybe coordinate or plan together, or at least have some parallel understanding, you know?
Absolutely. An easy way to do that is to send an email to WILPF4, the number 4, ppc@gmail.com, and say you want to be on the list. And you will get updates about everything that the PPC is doing, including this Saturday, there will be a voting rights action that they're doing in DC. Tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, Pacific time, that would be 10 o'clock Eastern time. There's going to be a live stream launch of the campaign, which focuses on not just the June 18th action, but the MORE campaign, mobilizing, organizing, registering, and educating poor and low income to vote, people to vote. And also, if you're interested in voting rights and connecting it with the Poor People's Campaign, register on the website for the National Poor People's Campaign, www.poorpeoplescampaign.org. And you will be getting updates directly from them. I will continue to serve as long as until I can find somebody else as the liaison, and I get word out on the WILPF PPC listserv about calls to action, which include voting rights information. Does that help? Does that help?
Yeah, I am on that listserv, and I do get that. But so I guess we'd have to go to the Poor People's Campaign website to be up to date and also on the listserv. But I was thinking if there was somebody who could, for example, if we have a voting rights organizing call, if somebody from the campaign could be on that call and sort of map out for us what would be the ongoing actions from now till, let's say, November. I mean, so that it's a more face-to-face contact and discussion. That's sort of the direction I was going.
That could be the role of the liaison who goes to the partners meetings with the national campaign and gets those updates.
I see. Okay.
They're not that much more information than what you get if you're already registered, but the liaison could be asked to inform the voting rights folks about how the voting rights work is dovetailing.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Can we quickly give Robin a chance? She's been waiting.
Go ahead, Robin, you're on mute.
I am. Yeah, in the Poor People's Campaign 2 years ago, whenever it was, we had in Vermont 3 leaders, 3 people in charge. This year we have none. I've tried to reach one of the people and he's going to get back to me, but I guess I'm wondering, is that concept of state organization, has that gone by the wind and we're not talking about that anymore? I think that would be very important for us who are not going to drive to Washington to take part on the state level. My other question is, how much help will the WILPF staff give? And I asked this in the chat, and it was sort of I don't think it was a full answer, but we now have staff people, and I would think that this is a time, this would be, our solidarity events should be something that the staff is very involved in promoting, and through, online stuff and publicity, whatever way possible. So if someone can expand.
Okay, so are we going to continue with this discussion now, or Mary Beth, or should
Can I
we move
answer
on?
that question very briefly?
Go ahead.
We haven't really figured out the jobs of our new staff. We have a general sense of what we want them to accomplish, and how they do that could well involve working with the branches in some ways so that we have a unified solidarity campaign publicity action. And we do expect to have much more social media, more thoroughly conceived to tie in with multiple e-news, e-alerts, possibly texts, as well as traditional WILPF actions. Thank you.
I could make a comment about the coordinating committees. If you're in a state where you have a strong coordinating committee, you are very much at an advantage. If your branch is in a state where it's real functional, then hook up with them. North Carolina is really good, I hear. So I know that it's still state-based, but one of the reasons that I need to step back from the liaison role is I'm on the coordinating committee for Washington State, and I'm spending 20 to 30 hours every week working on organizing our state. So it's a tremendous amount of work, and your coordinating committee in your state just may be having to rebuild during this time, or things happen. So then you'd have to look at ways to get involved nationally without going through your state.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of other people who wanted to say something. Cheryl?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Just to point out that like the last 3 solidarity campaigns, I was the overall coordinator. I spent hours doing that. I had a committee for each one that helped me. So really what you have to have, and I have not signed up for anything because I have a lot of other things to do, especially through Disarm. So somebody right now has to put their hand up and agree to be the coordinator, because you won't go anywhere unless a person agrees to do that. And then you get a list of those people who have said they want to work on it, and then you go forward. Mm-hmm. So just somebody has to put their hand up and say they will lead the voting rights, and the coordinating with PPC is, to me, part of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've been listening to people's comments, but we want that to be part of what we do tonight. So, Elenita?
Yeah, just a process suggestion. Mary Beth, you have the list of people who said they wanted to work on each of the 2 things, PPC and the voting rights. Can those lists and email addresses be shared? And then we'll get out a doodle poll, figure out when we can meet. I don't think it's practical for us to all get our calendars out now and 19 of us trying to figure out when we can meet and get started.
You're volunteering to contact people about the
You
doodle
send me the
poll?
list, I will send out the doodle poll.
Okay, good deal.
Blessed be.
Thank you.
Okay, and Ashley has a comment?
Yes, I wanted to say, because someone brought up North Carolina, because I am situated there and this is Reverend Barber State, that the capacity of the PPC here in our state is variable depending on what's going on with nationals. Because Reverend Barber is from here, anytime there's an event that nationals is having, they do try to hit North Carolina. So just keep in mind that we do have a strong steering committee, but because we're here in North Carolina, we're at not a disadvantage, but we do have kind of we have to drop what we're doing and focus on if nationals is doing something kind of situation going on. So just keeping that in mind in terms of, each place's involvement with PPC may look a little bit differently just based on what's going on there.
Great, thank you very much.
Mm.
Okay, Mary Beth, should we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Ellen Moss is concerned that, nobody's working on the Mayors for Peace. It was in third place. There were only 4 branches that said they were interested in doing Mayors for Peace. That doesn't mean that your branch can't work on it. And it doesn't mean that other branches can't work on it, but it's not going to be, it sounds like it's not going to be one of the solidarity issues that all of WILPF US plans to work on. It's not because it's not a great project, it is, and I shared the toolkit, which has all kinds of tools in it to take that and run with it. But
I have it.
okay. Okay, so all right, so this was a pretty robust discussion. I think you'll agree. Thank all of the branches for doing such a great job of turning in your votes. We appreciate the timeliness of that because we so wanted to report on, where the votes fell on this call. With that in mind, it looks like we have 2 solidarity actions that we're going to take up: the voting rights with Eileen, Lenita, Ashley, Lenny, Paula, Sandy, Joan, Pam, Betty, Sylvia, me, Nancy, Darian, Jean, Donna, Philip, and Judy. And the PPC with Eileen, Diane, Darian, Judy, Adams, Rowan, Emily Keel, Odile, Joan, Jane, and Dorothy. And as Dorothy said, she's got 5 other people as well. So Alanita is going to send out the Google poll for the voting rights one. And I'm sure Dorothy will send one out or somehow arrange for a meeting with the people who signed up for the PPC, right, Dorothy?
We will find a chair who will do that.
Okay, well, I'll send you the list, and however you feel like it should proceed is great. Okay, so I was going to say we needed to set up dates and times, but we're going to do that through doodle polls. That's great, and that means that we have chosen tonight our 2022 solidarity actions, and the organizing to make them reality will get started really quickly, which is what has to happen, because especially with the voting legislative, the voting legislation that's being pressed now, and the pressure to end the filibuster, these are things we have to jump on immediately. So does anyone have anything else to say or discuss before we end the call?
A question, Nancy.
Yes, go ahead, Nancy.
So do we know so Elenita is going to send out a poll to all the people who are on this call. Do we know that everyone on this call is representing a branch that voted? So it would be helpful to also let any branch that isn't represented on this call know about the poll.
We will be sending out notices about the vote to all the branches on the branch list.
Excuse me, somehow the bulletin board, the text pad was just deleted. And if you thought you were copying the text pad, maybe you could undo whoever happened to delete what was there.
I still have it. It's still up.
Mine is not deleted, Darian.
Okay.
The document is there, but there's no text in it. In mine.
Yeah, if you refresh, you may not have it anymore. Copy first. Something.
Wait a minute, let's see here. Yeah.
Could someone remind us how to get to the text pad, please?
Well,
Bottom of the screen, there are various options. And one of them says chat.
Yeah, that's the chat.
And you save chat. Then you go on your computer, you find where your downloads go. And usually it's under documents or downloads.
That wasn't a question.
No, my question is about the text pad.
And the link to the text pad is in the chat. Both Ellen Thomas
and it will, and the text pad will remain once it's refreshed.
I hope so.
That's a question.
Back as far as I can see, and I have copied it now, so I can keep refreshing it. If I think somebody what happened is someone put in a lot of spaces. It's all the way down at the end of the document. I don't know how many pages they skipped, but we'll get it up again here.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you to everyone who participated in the meeting tonight, and that we could talk about matters is helpful. I also feel like we can use the tools we have available to us, everything from doodle polls to subcommittees. Thank you.
I'm having trouble being able to copy the text pad, but it will remain, I guess.
The text pad should remain. You shouldn't have to copy it. However, Mary Beth, are you going to remove those extraneous
pages? I will try. I don't know why. Who's screen sharing right now?
Donna Pill is screen sharing, and it would be very nice if she would stop.
Yes. Donna, please stop screen sharing. Thank you.
Way
All
better.
right, I'm out of here. I got another meeting to start. Bye.
Thank you.
Odile,
Happy New Year,
Odile
Ellen.
is trying to speak and Lenny is trying to speak. I think Nancy, is that your hand up from before?
I think they're all trying to speak.
Okay, so Odile first and then Lenny and Nancy.
Odile, you're muted.
I wanted to say that on March 1st, there is going to be a national mobilization to go to our representative and demonstrate in front of their office to end the war in Yemen. So that's really important because a lot of money is going to the Saudi and the people are starving there. So it's important for us to do something, and you need to gather a group and contact your representative and let us know in the Middle East Committee what's going on with your representative. Thank you. March 1st.
What happened to our screens?
Sandy?
Lenny, maybe?
Lenny, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there's no reason why participation in this coordination should be limited to people who signed up on this call. Send out an e-alert and they'll tell everybody about the doodle poll.
Okay, sounds good. Does anyone else have their hand up? I can't see anyone, but Sandy, do you see anyone else who's?
I don't, but I'm not following as well as I should.
Cheryl's trying to speak.
Sorry?
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes, having coordinated at least 3 solidarity actions the last 3 years, I can be called for consultation on how is it that you get in touch with all the branches. I found that the branch liaisons are not very good for reaching the branches. So I actually made my own email list of people that I could depend on to get notices out when we were having actions. And so the person who's going to do this, who's going to be the lead, okay, and you do need a lead, can consult with me for some tips on all of this, okay? And also, I'm looking at the, we have 71 page, it's gone down to 11, good. So somebody's been, we were having 71 pages on the Google Doc. Now somebody's got rid of all those spaces, it's down to 10. So what you do is you don't copy and paste, you go to the file, the little thing at the top left that says file, and then it says download, and you say download this as a Microsoft Word document, and you will get it it'll ask you where you want to put it. Okay, so I'm going to put it under WILPF calls. I have a directory on my computer that's for WILPF calls. I have 32 different directories for WILPF activities. So if you're really going to do all this, you need to be, keeping track and doing all this stuff on your computer. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And this has been a very good, I think, discussion about, and I think where it comes from is everyone really wanting to work on these issues. So I'm hoping that from these people that have signed up and said they want to, that we will be able to get going on these issues pretty quickly. So thank you very much. Our next WILPF call is on Thursday, February 10th. Be sure you have it on your calendar. And all who are organizing for the solidarity actions, be sure you've written the first meeting date and time on your calendar too. Do we have those meeting dates?
We don't have them yet. No, the doodle polls will help with that.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Mary Beth, you need to change a slide.
Okay, so let's all unmute and say goodnight. Be sure to hang on for the informal soapbox segment immediately following this call. That's where we hang out and share feedback from the call, more discussion, and share more about what's going on with one another personally. Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Night, everybody.